Part 2, my Harry Potter Retrospective. Here we go. Now, the 5th book comes out a couple years after the movie, and I gotta say, this is one of my favorite books, and one of the things I like about it is the fact that it starts off kind of hot. Like in the 2nd chapter, something big happens. There's a Dementor attack. And so, there's a really cool thing with Harry and his adopted family, his aunt, his uncle, and his cousin. And it really drives home that even though they don't like Harry all that much, there's still well, we have to take him, and it's not explained here, but there's definitely explained later on. Not to mention, there's something Harry actually defends his cousin, and it's one of the things that you would think, man, he's a better person than I am. I probably wouldn't have done that. But at the same time, you kind of would have to. And so that's really cool. And also, this book shows a lot of Harry dealing with his emotions, his anger, his frustration, even lust and a crush. And the whole thing with him and Cho Chang is kind of interesting. Especially, he says Harry was there when her boyfriend Cedric Diggory was killed, and him trying to get his Dumbledore army, as they call it, to try and combat what's going on, and people not believing that Voldemort has returned. It's a really cool scene. Harry kind of showing more leadership, and also you had Neville Longbottom, who I kind of for a while I saw him as a mix between Milhouse Van Houten and Ralph Wiggum from The Simpsons. But he really grows in the 5th book, and it's really nice to see him change like that. But Harry as well, but his was kind of quick. Harry's been more progressive over the years since we've been following him for a lot more. And it's really, really nice to see. What I thought was interesting was his dynamic with Sirius Black. And it's a great dynamic. The two of them, you can tell in the book, because they worked together for a long time, there's still a little bit of distance between them. But this book definitely closes the distance between them and makes it seem like, yeah, this man really should have been Harry's godfather and should have taken care of him, but he couldn't because of the spell that was cast by Harry's mom as we learned in the 4th book. So there's definitely some really good stuff in the 5th book. One of the things that's always funny to me is to think about, because my brothers, when they started reading Harry Potter, they got the 5th book, it was like, oh god, this book is so verbose, there's so many pages. It was like 900, and they was just, every time it's, oh, this is so verbose, this should get paid by the page or something, oh god. And so yes, it's a slog at times, because after it starts off hot, the first couple of chapters, it starts to slow down a bit, and so you're kind of waiting for something to happen. But this book has a really good antagonist with Dolores Umbridge. She's just a bitch, and she's the kind of bitch that is perfect for Harry to be pitted against, and especially great because she comes from the Ministry of Magic, who Harry thought of as a great ally, but now they're on icy terms after the end of the 4th book. This is one thing that was great about the 5th book. It really does follow the stuff that happens from the 4th book into this one. There's a lot of fallout, which is great. Also, like I said, the whole thing with Cedric Diggory and Cho Chang. Him trying to date Cho Chang, but there's still that feeling she had for Cedric. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I could have done a lot more with that throughout the 5th and 6th book, but unfortunately it didn't. I have a fan theory about why that is, but I'll save that for another day. And so that book is really good, and there's some really interesting things going on. The whole owl thing, it's just there as a background noise, but there's a really cool, really interesting scene, not cool, interesting scene with Hagrid that happens during their owl. And it shows kind of Hagrid can be kind of vicious when he needs to be. And speaking of Hagrid, one of the things I always liked about this whole series is Harry and Hagrid's whole friendship, and basically like cousins or brothers being together. Hagrid's kind of like the big brother to him. But one of the things that I really liked about this book is the end fight. The end fight is great. There's so much insanity that goes on in it that you can't help but like, wait, what am I reading? What the heck is going on here? And it's really cool. And also, like I said, Sirius's relationship with Harry is great in this book. And so when the final battle comes up, they know how to get Harry out of safety and charge it blindly using Sirius. And so that was great to see that, not to mention what happens in the end of the 5th book. I know I said there'd be spoilers, but I'm trying not to spoil this one because it's just so good. You gotta read it for yourself. And when my cousin, my uncle and I got together after reading the book, I was like, wait a minute, there's a way they can do this. They can bring this person back and do this and all that. And we were like thinking like comic books, because in comic books, they'll kill somebody, but then they'll bring them back like a year later or in the next volume. And so we were thinking just like that, but yeah, that didn't happen. Fast forward to the 6th book. The 6th book is kind of funny to me because it came out the day after my birthday, so we were going to go watch a movie, Fantastic Four, which was, and then we're going to go and reserve the book. I said maybe we should go reserve the book first, and they said no, we should be fine. After the movie, we go to the Borders, the bookstore that used to exist, and we say, okay, we want to reserve the Harry Potter book. And they said, yeah, you're gonna be on this list. I was like 250. I was like, we should have gone hours before. It could have been like 100. We would have to wait so long. So we waited like 2 hours after the midnight release, and then it was like, oh yeah, it was pretty bad. And so we try to keep busy. My brothers were not reading Harry Potter at the time. Yeah, they're supportive, but I was like, okay, well, can we get the book and get out of here? And I told myself, yeah, I'm probably just gonna go home and go back to the apartment and then go to sleep. I didn't. I read a couple chapters, but the 6th book is not as good as the 5th book, and there are a couple things that I did not like. One was, why the hell did they have Harry all of a sudden go for Ginny? And so that I didn't like that, because wait a minute, she had that crush on all these like the first 3 or 4 books. 5th book, she finally seemed to be over him and actually do her own thing, and now you're saying that it's now him that has the. No, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't like forced romance, and this at times felt forced. It didn't feel right to me, and that goes to my fan theory, which I'll explain in another day. I don't have the time to really do it now, but one of the things is also Slughorn is not as good as some of the other new teachers they brought in, like Lupin or Mad-Eye Moody, or even Dolores Umbridge. Even though she was a bitch, she was a great antagonist for Harry and everybody else to be against. And so he's not as good. There's some in these books definitely have some great antagonistic elements between Harry and Snape, and those are some great moments in all 3, the 5th and 6th book. And there's definitely a lot of hatred between the two of them, and you definitely see that in the 5th book. They explain some of the 5th book, and then in the 6th book as well. But then in the 7th book, I'll explain later on, you realize, oh, that's why, and it all makes sense. And the whole thing between Harry and Snape throughout the 7 years, the entire series, is great stuff. Just like Harry's stuff with Hagrid and Dumbledore. It's just, there's some really good stuff between those 3 sets of people, those 3 relationships that Harry has. They're the closest people, the closest adults in his life, and they're so different in the way that he relates to them or doesn't relate to them. But the sixth book also, it has a really good. It starts off slow, and it's not as good as the fifth book, and there's a lot of stuff that kind of was cliffhanger for the fifth book, but they don't really go into. And not to mention the whole thing with Harry going to be learning from Dumbledore. That, okay, great, maybe he'll learn some new attacks, all the way to defend himself, all this, all that. But instead, it's all backstory. It's all Voldemort backstory. Yeah, it's good, but at the same time, I wanted to see him improve himself and raise his abilities to another level. And since that didn't happen, it was like, oh, it kind of seemed like a wasted opportunity. But all in all, the sixth book is good, but definitely a downgrade for the fifth book. But it definitely comes back up with the seventh book, my favorite book of the series. It's great stuff. And what's great is the sixth book and the seventh book definitely has, with Ron and Hermione telling Harry, when Harry tried to tell them, look, I got to do this. I want to do it on my own. I don't want you guys to get caught in the middle of this. And they basically tell him, we've been with you from the beginning. We're not abandoning you now. We're doing this. We're sticking together to the end. Which is great. And also, what was great is the whole tension between Ron and Harry. As a lot of guys would tell you, even your best friend, you clash with each other. There's friction sometimes, especially when you spend a lot of time together. It's inevitable. You're gonna clash. There's gonna be confrontation. There's gonna be friction, and so I like seeing that. I would have liked to see Hermione have a little friction with Harry at times, kind of question what he's doing, if he knows what he's doing is the right thing, and that sort of thing. Even though she is the voice of reason at times, I would have liked to have seen her do that as well. It's a small nitpick, yes, but still, it's a little thing. But there's some really good stuff in this seventh book. I'm gonna try not to spoil it because I just want you to read it. There are a couple of good deaths in this seventh book. There's definitely a body count in the seventh book. Oh, there's a body count. And there is some really good moments in 7, but there's also a couple of things that I was like, mainly the stuff between Ron and Hermione, especially towards the end of the book, was like, there was an undercurrent of that in, I guess, starting from the 4th book, but then you really saw that in the 6th book, and it's just in your face in the 7th book. Like, not a fan. I was not a fan of that. But, okay, it is what it is. But the final battle is great. It's fantastic. And the way that Harry confronts Voldemort it's heartbreaking and kind of sad. But then there's some really great stuff in this battle and the confrontation between Harry's forces and Voldemort's forces. So it's definitely worth reading. There's an epilogue after it's all said and done. I would have liked to have seen some. My brother and I have said this. We would like to see something in between the epilogue and that end of the battle. See the aftermath of the battle itself. I would have liked to have seen that, but it seems like a wasted opportunity. But at the same time, you kind of think, well, would it have been as good as we think it would be, or we just setting ourselves up for disappointment. I don't know. That's just my thought on that. And so, definitely a great series. Glad I read it. I definitely want to reread the series now, but I'm not going to watch the movies though. I'm just going to stick to the books. What do you guys think? What's your favorite Harry Potter book? Who's your favorite Harry Potter character? Alright. I got another retrospective coming up, probably starting tomorrow. And so until then, take care.